Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Even though it's not Tuesday, today I'm going to be doing the Shakespeare Journey Tag because it's September 1st, and today Shaketember begins. This is an event that is being hosted by Books I'm Not Reading, A Day of Small Things, and Old Blues Chapter and Verse. In her announcement video about Shaketember, Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading talked about this tag, and she invited anybody who hadn't done it or who hadn't been here last year or who didn't see the tag to do it this year for Shaketember. I know a lot of people did it last year. I was not a part of BookTube then. I have gone back and watched some of the videos that were produced about a year ago, but I thought this would be a perfect way for me to kick off my experience, my first experience of Shaketember. So Kelly, thank you for the invitation. So there are 12 prompts. Number 1, what was your first experience reading Shakespeare and what was it like? My first experience probably was like many people in the United States anyway. It was reading Shakespeare in the 9th grade. We read Romeo and Juliet in the 9th grade, and then the entire 9th grade was taken to a movie theater to see Franco Zeffirelli's movie Romeo and Juliet. That movie came out in 1968, so that was a few years before I was a freshman in high school, but at that time, that's what we did. We went as whole classes, whole grades. We would get on buses and go to theaters to see movies. I remember we saw Roman Polanski's Macbeth that way as well when we were in the 11th grade. We all got on buses and went to a theater. But anyway, seeing Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet after having read it in class just blew my mind. And I went home and I went over 2 doors away from my house to my neighbors who I used to babysit for them. And the mom was an English teacher, not in my school. And I asked her if she had a copy of Shakespeare that I could borrow, and she gave me an anthology, the complete works. And I took it home and I started reading Shakespeare on my own. And I was so in love with that experience and with that book that I gave it back to my neighbor and I asked my parents for that book for Christmas. And that was the year that I got the complete works of William Shakespeare illustrated for Christmas when I was in the 9th grade. So this was my first full, complete works of Shakespeare. I would have others, but that was the first one that my parents gave me for Christmas. Number 2, has the reading of a Shakespeare play ever brought you to tears? And what scene was it and where were you when it happened? The reading of King Lear, the entire play, just destroys me. Every time I have ever read that play, I have wept. And it's at several different places, so I can't really pinpoint a scene. And it's not even seeing it performed, it's reading it. But I've also had teaching experiences that have moved me to tears. I talked about this one in another video some months back, but it's worth repeating here. I frequently taught Hamlet in senior English classes, and we taught this play in a variety of different senior English courses. One year I was teaching this in a class, a very small senior English class that had some severely disabled students in it. Some had severe learning disabilities, and some had severe emotional blocks as well. And it was a small class. I had several aides in the room with me, and each kid had his or her own individual learning plan. And we had a bunch of different things going on in the room. But I had this one student who was very bright and very, very capable. And his disabilities were of an emotional nature. He did not really have learning disabilities. He could read anything on his own, anything that we gave him. And he was reading Hamlet one day. He was reading in one part of the room, and I was working with the student who was seated closest to him. I was working one-on-one with this student, and suddenly, out of sort of the corner of my eye, I see this student, Justin, just kind of like drop the book on his desk, and then he blurts out, "Wow!" So I turn to him and I say, "What's up, Justin?" And he holds the book up and he goes, This just may be the best book I have ever read in my life." And I felt my heart in my throat, because of what was happening to him. Because he learned that year that he was very capable and that he could read anything and he could do anything. And I just remember going down to my department office afterwards and just walking through the door, and everybody was like, "What happened?" And I just said, I think my work here is done. I think it's time for me to go. I don't think anything can compare to what just happened. So that was an experience of teaching, and teaching Hamlet, teaching Shakespeare, that moved me to tears. Are there any people that have had a significant role in your Shakespeare journey? Absolutely. I have had many, many wonderful teachers in my life. My 11th grade English teacher, we read Macbeth together, and we went to see Macbeth, Polanski's Macbeth, and she was just a very powerful teacher who had a profound impact on my life. She helped me get into college. She helped me find a college. She helped me, with the whole process. But I read Macbeth with her, and it was one of those, just like Romeo and Juliet was. It was just a very powerful emotional experience and an eye-opening experience. And I knew that year in 11th grade that I was going to major in English, and I knew that I was going to become an English teacher. In college, we were required to take a Shakespeare seminar, and that was the year that we were also required to buy the Riverside Shakespeare. And this is, such a treasured volume that I will never part with. And that was with a professor that pretty much you were required to have before you could graduate with an English major. This is an unwieldy book, I have to say. It's hard to carry around, it's hard to hold, it's hard to lift. You have to read at a table or a desk. But the professor that I had for that course, while he was a very difficult personality for many of us to deal with, he did take us through not the complete works of Shakespeare, but we read a lot. And much of what I really know about Shakespeare started in that college seminar. And then I also had a very profound effect, a profound experience, rather, in my senior year of college when I was student teaching. And the second book that I ever taught was Macbeth. And this was in a very rural Vermont high school. And my cooperating teacher was a superstar and someone that I wanted to emulate. And she helped me to figure out ways to make this play palatable and much more than that to all levels of sophomores in high school. I had an honors class, I had a regular college prep class, 2 regular college prep classes, and I had a basic skills class. And we read Macbeth in all of them. And we had kids up on their feet acting and performing and reciting. And it was just a really, really powerful experience. And it would impact the rest of my teaching career. Okay. Number 4. Do you have a favorite book or film about Shakespeare? Well, I have been reading works about Shakespeare my whole career, and there are many that have had a profound influence on my teaching of Shakespeare. There's Northrop Frye on Shakespeare, and A.C. Bradley, Shakespearean Tragedy, Lectures on Hamlet, Othello, Lear, and Macbeth. Now, A.C. Bradley died in 1935, so these essays were already, they had been around for a long time when I was in college, but we used this book. This was a valuable resource in college, and I continued to refer to this throughout my career. And then a book that I am dipping in and out of and have been for years, and that I'm going to be reading sections of for this month, is Harold Bloom's Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human. And he has in here essays on all of the plays. I'm going to be reading several of those this month. And then also, and this is a book I talked about in another video that I did recently, this is Carolyn G. Heilbrunn, who was an English professor at Columbia. This is Hamlet's Mother and Other Women. So this is a collection of essays on women in literature, but the title essay is her analysis of the character of Hamlet's mother, Gertrude. Really, really powerful and important book. Okay. Number 5. Which character in Shakespeare most resembles you, and in what ways? I'm going to say Hamlet's best friend, Horatio. Horatio is left at the end of the play to tell Hamlet's story, but he is the quintessential loyal friend. He sticks by Hamlet when other friends betray him, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, when his own stepfather, Claudius, betrays him. People are betraying Hamlet everywhere. Horatio is the loyal friend. And I aspire to be like Horatio. I think people who know and love me would say that I am, if nothing else, I am loyal. I am there I'm with you to the bitter end. I was a loyal daughter. I am a loyal sister, aunt, and friend, most definitely. Okay. Number 6, which play would you most like to see performed in a theater, and why? I have seen many of Shakespeare's plays in the theater. I've seen Macbeth, Julius Caesar, A Midsummer Night's Dream, A Winter's Tale, Othello, Hamlet. I'm sure I've seen all of those. I've seen The Tempest. I do not believe I've ever seen King Lear, and that's a play I need to see. That is a play that I need to see in this life. Okay. What actor throughout history would you most like to have seen play Hamlet while in his prime? I have seen a lot of Hamlets. I've seen Olivier, I've seen Kenneth Branagh, I've seen Mel Gibson, I've seen David Tennant, I've seen Jude Law. I would like to have seen Ian McKellen. I don't think I've seen him. I would have liked to have seen that. I would also, I know that Daniel Day-Lewis played Hamlet, I think in the late 80s in London. I would have liked to have seen that as well. There must be a recording of that somewhere, but I don't think I've seen that one. So I don't think I've seen Ian McKellen. Ian McKellen, and I don't think, and I know I haven't seen Daniel Day-Lewis, so that I would like to see. Okay. Um, Number 8, deliver your favorite speech or soliloquy from a Shakespeare play. Probably the soliloquies that I know the best are in Hamlet, and they're all pretty dark. I'm not going to read those. Those certainly are the ones I've analyzed the most in my life. But I'm going to read the last words of A Midsummer Night's Dream, when the fairy Puck, also known as Robin Goodfellow, he kind of comes out after the play ends, and he addresses the audience, and he basically says, if we've offended you, sorry, just pretend that this was a dream. But the thing that I think is so wonderful about that is that he is really including the audience in the whole experience of the play, because most of the characters, many of the characters, have also sort of awakened from a dream where, crazy things have happened to them. So he's kind of saying, well, maybe you, audience, have also just dreamt this whole thing. So he's making us a part of the experience. So if we dreamt it, then we are just like the sets of lovers and like Bottom, who also has had a crazy dream, or he's led to believe he's had a dream. And if we didn't dream it, then we're like the characters who are kind of in the outer circle, the Oberon and Puck, I guess, and the other royals, and I guess Shakespeare himself. So I like the thought of the audience being a part of the dream. So this is Puck. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. And as I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, else the Puck a liar call. So, good night unto you all. Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. So, I think that's a delightful closing. Okay. Number 9. Do any of Shakespeare's plays intimidate you? If yes, what play and why? Not anymore. I mean, they used to. They certainly, probably all used to intimidate me when I was young. Macbeth certainly did. The thought that I had to teach this as a person who had never taught before, that was very intimidating. So, what I did, and what I always did as a teacher, whenever I was going to teach something that I had never taught before, I read it and I reread it and I read it again and I read everything I could find about it, and I made myself a little, mini expert on it. So, I think they all used to intimidate me. The first time I taught Hamlet, I know I was intimidated. Like, what could I possibly have to say about Hamlet? But I think after almost 40 years of teaching, I think I don't feel as intimidated. I see a new Shakespearean play to me as a challenge, but want a task that I'm ready to accept. I guess there are plays that that not many people read, and that don't get performed very often, and maybe they would be intimidating to me. Plays that I don't even really have a concept about, but I would treat those the same way that I treat any other play. Just dig in, read it. Okay. Number 10, what tips would you give to intimidated readers coming to Shakespeare for the first time? Well, that's a really, really good question. And these are all tips that that I used working with kids, when you're introducing Shakespeare to students. I would say listen to Shakespeare being performed, get a good audio version. I would say watch Shakespeare, watch scenes. And that was how I taught Shakespeare. And perform it yourself. Read it out loud. It's meant to be heard. It's meant to be read out loud. It's meant to be performed. So when I was teaching Shakespeare, we would read scenes out loud, we would perform them, we would watch other people perform them. When I was teaching Hamlet in AP English literature, we would watch multiple different versions of the same scene, from the different film versions that were available, and use those to help us to analyze what was going on. So I would say get on your feet and perform. I would say read out loud, listen to professionals read out loud, all of those things. But it helps to hear it and it helps to see it. And then I think the language is not nearly as intimidating as when you're just reading it on the page. So, and that was what I did as a teacher. I used all of those things: performance, listening, watching, and reading. You have to read it too, but read it while hearing it as well. So, okay. Number 11, which is your favorite Shakespearean play and why? Well, that's Hamlet. No question. No question. There's so much in Hamlet. You could read Hamlet all year long and still find new things in it. I had so many great teaching experiences with Hamlet. The psychological complexity of the character of Hamlet makes it just so rich. And then there are just so many important issues in this play. I mean, that's true of most of Shakespeare's plays, but you've got friend relationships, you have parent-child relationships, you've got revenge, the good old revenge theme, depression, struggling with loss, mourning. There's just so much in this play. And I found the longer I taught it, the longer it took me to teach, because there's just so much in it. And every time I come back to it, I find something new, and I see something new. And I used to try to, share that with the kids in my charge. Okay. And finally, tag others. Well, like I said, this tag came around last year for the first time. So it was a new tag, I think, last September. So if you haven't done this tag and you would like to do this tag, please do this. Please consider yourself tagged. I tried to see who Kelly tagged last year, and I was able to see that. I tried to also look for videos of this, from last year to see who did it last year. So I'm trying not to tag people who have already done it. But as Steve Donahue said, you can do a tag more than once. Answers change over time. But, if I'm tagging you and you've already done this, just know I was thinking of you. But so if you're watching this and you would like to do this and you're thinking of participating in Shaketember, or even if you're not, please consider yourself tagged. And then additionally, I'm going to just tag some people, as I always do. And don't feel obligated to do this. And if you're not into Shakespeare or you feel intimidated by this, disregard. No hurt feelings. Okay, but here's my list. Beyond books, Rainer reads stuff, genre books, Quaint and Curious volumes, Stuart Griffin, Big Hard Books and Classics, middle of the book March, Britta Bowler, Libro Paradiso, Mariandrea at Books and Bocadillos, Melinda at A Web of Stories, who, by the way, is reading Shakespeare all year long. She's reading the complete works of Shakespeare. Angelia at Read and Reread, who I know is participating in Melinda's readathon. Noteworthy Fiction. Joshua Crebo reads. David Novak reads poetry. Philip Hall at A Poet Reads to Write. Heather Gregg, great books, big ideas, and to readers it may concern. And anybody else who's watching this who is at all interested. Kelly, I thank you for the invitation. I hope that we can revive this year for this year's wonderful Shaketember reading event. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.